Welcome back. Colorado voters will get to decide whether to repeal the national popular vote law signed by Governor Polis earlier this year. The Secretary of State's office says supporters of the repeal turned in more than enough signatures to get the issue on the 2020 ballot. They're trying to repeal that new law, which would give all 9 of Colorado's Electoral College votes to the presidential candidate who does the best in the nationwide popular vote. Several more states must still sign on for this to take effect. Colorado Senator Michael Bennet says he will not be dropping out of the presidential race, even though he will not be on the debate stage in Houston September 12th. Just 10 candidates met the debate requirements of polling at 2% in 4 approved polls and securing 130,000 unique donors by this past Thursday. Senator Bennet and the rest of Colorado's congressional delegation will head back to work a week from tomorrow. And the summer break is meant for lawmakers to catch up with voters in their home state. For freshman Congressman Joe Neguse, it's also a chance to catch up with family after a busy 8 months in Washington.
There's a lot to get done, right? There are a lot of big challenges that we face as a society, as a state, and as a country. And I think the Congress and the House has been very focused on working to address those challenges. We've introduced 21 bills since I was elected, the most bills of any freshman lawmaker in the United States, and so been very aggressive in terms of trying to work with our local communities on solutions that we think will address some of the real problems that we face.
I know protecting public lands has been a priority for you. So how does that affect Colorado?
So in a number of different ways. I grew up here, as I suspect many of your viewers did, and we are so lucky to have incredible public lands in the state of Colorado. And I think about this through the prism of being a young father. As we were talking off air, my daughter turns 1 next week, and for her generation, it's going to be critical that we protect these public lands that we're so blessed to have in Colorado, and that's going to take real action at the federal level. So I've introduced a bill called the CORE Act. It would protect 400,000 acres across our state. Senator Bennet is the sponsor in the Senate. It just passed the House Natural Resources Committee, a committee I serve on. It was the first major wilderness legislation for Colorado that has passed a committee in the Congress in a decade. So there's forward momentum on the bill. We're excited about the next chapter and getting that bill out of the House and into the Senate. And again, you think about some of the most iconic places in our state that we all love to go visit and to hike and to camp and so forth. Protecting those spaces and those areas and those public lands, hugely important for me, for my district, and I think ultimately for the people of Colorado.
And climate change, I know, has also been a top issue for you as well, and you just convened a group in Boulder. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so again, this is another generational issue for me. The existential threat of climate change and the planetary crisis we find ourselves in, I think, deserves our attention. And we have a committee in the Congress that we believe can meet the scale and the gravity of the problem. It's the Select Committee on the Climate Crisis. There are 15 of us appointed by the Speaker and the Minority Leader. I'm privileged to be one of the 15 members. And one of our first orders of business, one of the things I advocated most strongly for, was to hold a field hearing here in Colorado, to bring the committee to Colorado and to my district in particular, Boulder, as well as Golden and elsewhere, so that my committee members could visit with these incredible scientists and researchers at our federal labs, many of which your station has covered in the past, doing some real incredible research at NREL and NIST and NOAA. So we had a great hearing. The governor, among many other witnesses, testified before the committee, and I imagine that much of what we learned here at that field hearing will form the basis of the recommendations that the committee makes to Congress to really take tangible action, substantive action, to move us to 100% renewable energy.
Are you encouraged that that can happen? I mean, that is such a political, a hot political football issue.
Yeah, I am optimistic. Maybe it's because I'm a little younger, so I'm naive about it. But I honestly, I think that there is no problem we can't solve if we don't work hard enough. And actually, my observations from visiting with my committee members, my fellow members from both sides of the aisle here during the field hearing a few weeks ago, and seeing them interact with the incredible scientists that we have here in our state, I was very heartened, because I could see, and my sense was that they understood the gravity of the problem and the need for us to take action. And that we don't have a lot of time to waste, as you know. According to most empirical studies you see, it's a very short runway in terms of avoiding the most catastrophic consequences of climate change. And we, of course, in Colorado have felt them in a very visceral way: wildfires, drought, and so forth. So, no, it is a critical challenge. It's one of my top priorities in Congress.
I know you have Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez coming to Boulder. Where do you stand? How do you align yourself with this interesting Democratic Party right now? There are those who are in line with AOC, some of those with Joe Biden and others. Where do you see yourself? How do you align yourself?
I see myself, in all seriousness, I see myself as a voice for the people of the 2nd District of Colorado. I'm a progressive. I believe in bold progressive solutions to some of the critical challenges that we've already talked about in terms of climate change and making sure that people can afford to live in the communities that we're so lucky to call home. But I am all about working with anybody who is someone of good faith who wants to try to solve some of these problems. And so we're excited to welcome Representative Ocasio-Cortez to Colorado in a few weeks. We'll be welcoming Speaker Pelosi next week. She'll be coming to Colorado. We'll be doing an event on health care. A number of others, of course, as you've seen, presidential candidates who've been coming to Colorado, and so eager to welcome them to our district so that they have a chance to visit with the incredible voters of the 2nd. Yeah. So, but again, my focus, working really hard to be responsive to my constituents and delivering for them, and that's going to remain my focus as long as I'm lucky enough to have this job.
And it's been 8 months, and you've already had what, more than two dozen town hall meetings?
Yeah, 20 town halls. Yeah.
So what are you hearing from your constituents? I know we talked about climate change. We talked about yeah, I mean, what else are you hearing?
Well, so one of the reasons we had 20 town halls, it's more town halls than any freshman lawmaker in the United States, or at least as of last week, so I imagine that we'll have to check back those numbers. But and the reason we do them, I have a very big geographical district. I represent the Central Mountains, northern Colorado, up to the Wyoming border, Lafayette, of course, where me and my wife live. And it's important for me to be able to visit with constituents. I get some of the best ideas in terms of policy proposals and so forth from visiting with constituents. And that's why we do these town halls so frequently, and it's why we're going to continue to do them. I also should mention we've done a new initiative called Service Town Halls, where we actually combine volunteerism with a town hall. We just did one at the Humane Society in Loveland. Prior to that, did a trail restoration project in Estes Park. A way to kind of heal the political divide, right? To sort of turn down the temperature, interact with folks as we're volunteering for a greater cause. And then, of course, constituents have an opportunity to ask me all the tough questions and hear where I stand on a given issue. I hear a lot, in terms of your core question, in addition to the challenges I just mentioned, about affordable housing. A lot of people are struggling in this economy, and given the growth that we've experienced in Colorado, to be able to afford to stay in their homes or to purchase their first home. So we're doing a lot in Congress. I've introduced 2 bills with Republican co-sponsors, bipartisan bills, to try to increase the affordable housing stock in the metro area and beyond. We're hopeful that those bills might get through both chambers and signed by the president. We've had 2 bills signed by President Trump already on public lands earlier this year. And so, again, excited to make forward progress where we can, and that's going to be the focus.
Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us, Congressman Neguse. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
John Hickenlooper's Senate candidacy is causing an uprising in the Democratic Party. We'll explain right after this.